Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. Today we're going to talk about the difference between soul contracts and soul agreements. So what are soul contracts? You see that term constantly, especially when you're talking about consciousness, higher awareness. You'll see people say, oh, they have soul contracts. Soul contracts are contracts you agree to before you're born, and they can be contracts as to who your parents are going to be, who your husband's going to be, who your wife's going to be, kids are going to be, who your friends are going to be, who your lovers are going to be. And you enter into these contracts to help other souls grow. And you, in turn, agree with other people to help you grow. It's usually growth on both sides. Sometimes some contracts are more one-sided than others, but you kind of can't get out of them. And you're also you can sometimes be clearing karma and collecting karma at the same time. It can depend on how you do the contract. And I did a video about clearing karma and collecting karma, so I don't really want to get into that here. So it can kind of go back and forth on what you're doing. But just remember, contracts you've agreed to beforehand. You agreed to live in certain places. You agreed to have certain jobs. You agreed to experience certain things. And there's a point when you're, especially in your third dimensional level of consciousness, your human experience, you have to experience those. You can't get out of them. They are contracts you have to fulfill. Now, we've gotten into videos before we talk about speeding things up, what we call like quantum jumping, where you might have 5 years that you have to get through in 6 months. And you might be moving all the time or going through a lot of boyfriends or girlfriends or going through a lot of different jobs because you've got to still hit all those contracts. But what might have taken you 6 months to go through or 6 years to go through, you can maybe boil it down to 3 weeks because you know what the energy is, you understand your purpose there, and you can speed it up. Normally, we can't really start quantum jumping until we reach a level of consciousness to understand what that entails. Understand what we're committing to do, because you still have to do them. You just don't have to spend as much time in them because you understand the energy of them. Let's say you're used to being in relationships that have kind of similar energy. You're giving a lot, the other person might not be. You might get into that same situation again, and it can be a friendship, it can be a lover, it doesn't matter. Friendships, it's all the same. You have soul contracts, soulmates with everybody. It's the same thing. But when you see the energy again, you know you have to meet that person, participate in their soul growth, fulfill your contract. But instead of setting through something for 4 months, because you also have to work out stuff, you can kind of hit it and quit it. Go through it in like 3 weeks, a month, understand where it's going to go, fulfill your contract, and then go on to something else. So contracts are more things that we agree to before we come in. Agreements come in when you reach a certain level of consciousness where you fulfilled your soul contracts. You understand when they were over. You understand when you have given. You've cleared the karmic debt, if that's what the purpose was of those contracts. You no longer have to enter into stuff that you might find not enjoyable, disrespectful, obligation. You don't have to do it. You've reached a point where you've cleared those contracts out. Every contract you had, there will be a time when there's an out. A lot of times the human gets attached to the thing, it doesn't take the out. So that's when the whole thing kind of collapses on top of us because we don't take the out, even though we fulfilled that contract. So you can probably look back in your human experience when we didn't really understand this and see where that happened. Yes, I fulfilled that contract, but I didn't get out. I let it crash down around me because I wasn't ready. I filled that contract in that place, but I didn't wait and find a new place. Even though I knew it was over, I waited until the landlord told me I had to get out, or all of a sudden I had to move. It doesn't really matter how it ended, but you always had that trap door my friend would always say she built in a trap door to get out of everything when it was time. You just pull the trap door and you go. But the human doesn't want to. So that's normally when things start collapsing because you fulfilled your agreement, your contract. I keep getting agreement and contract. I'm kind of mulling them here, but the contract has been fulfilled. And you agreed to it before you got here. Agreements, we agreed to once we're here. And normally once we reach a state of consciousness where we can enter into an agreement with a person and be honest about what the agreement is. In a soul contract, sometimes we participate in those in our human experience. We even know what we're doing. Sometimes you're playing the bad guy. We can be terribly mean and cruel, but that was our contract with that person. That's what we were supposed to do. We're clearing some karma in a way we're collecting karma. We're playing both sides of the coin in that one. When you reach a higher state of consciousness, you can say, okay, I'm going to enter into this agreement. It's 100% both ways. This is what I'm agreeing to doing. This is what you're agreeing to do. And if this agreement is met, we can have this relationship. But it's all on the table. Contracts are kind of, in a way, kind of inked by your soul before you get here. And you don't really remember them. But when you get to a place where you can remember them, you can start closing them out, shortening them up, and then start doing agreements from then on, because you don't have to enter into stuff that you don't want to do anymore. It's not respectful. It's not aligned. You know it's not. You don't have to go back into those. Agreements are a lot more freeing if you just even weigh the words. It's a contract. It's an agreement. Agreements feel better. They feel freer. They make us feel like we have control. And we do. But we have to be at a level of consciousness to know that and understand what we're agreeing to and be able to communicate it to the other person. This is the agreement we have. This is what we're going to do. If we're all in, we're both all in, but no more half stuff, half agreements. Those fall more into contracts. We've done those. We've moved past those. We've fulfilled those. We've stamped those completed. And we move on to something else. If you're really holding on to something and it's coming down around you, that's a soul contract. If you're entering into something, everyone understands their part in it, it's an agreement. But we have to be in the consciousness to see the difference. Some soul contracts can be really beautiful. They don't all have to be terrible. They can be really beautiful. They just aren't always aligned for the rest of your life, and they shift and change. And there's usually something to it that hampers us a bit. There's something to us that we get to a point where we know it's done. I have contracts with different places I'm supposed to go. And when the contract's up, because I had to meet certain people at those places, when the contract's up, I'm not supposed to go anymore. And if I try to go back, karma kind of slaps me upside the head. My universe will say, no more. You got to now go somewhere else. You have a different thing to do now. Don't hold on to the old stuff. So, agreements and contracts, totally different energy. If you're not sure which one you're in, look at how you feel about it and keep practicing the art of intuition.